You're listening to Release Your Resistance with Bex Beltran, episode 79. Welcome to Release Your Resistance. This is Bex. The only reason why any of us don't have what we want in life is because of our own resistance. Right now, I'm learning how to recognize and release my resistance, and this podcast tells you how you can release your resistance so that you can live the exact life that you want. Let's get started. Earlier this week, I found a new metaphor which was just so interesting and so enlightening to me. I thought it would be great to share it with you to see if you are as interested and as enlightened as I was. If you've been following me or if you have scanned through some of the titles of this podcast, you may remember that a little over 6 months ago, my husband and I started a renovation on the house that we are currently living in, and this project has brought up so much resistance for me. So this whole experience has just been like a test kitchen or a laboratory for me to practice all my own skills on myself and learn about and practice accepting and letting go. So there have been so many benefits. So today I want to tell you about another benefit of this renovation and this whole move process, since we are still in what I like to call the messy middle of this project. And just to give a quick little update in case you don't follow me on social media, and if you haven't seen some of the recent projects that my husband has been working on, he has almost completed the hall bath, and he did a beautiful tile wall. The tile is so lovely. It is iridescent. It's kind of pearly, and now we have a very light blushy pink called Romance as the wall color in there, which I am just so pleased with. And last week, we were able to find the perfect vanity to fit in that space. And another project that got closer to completion this past week was the replacement of some of our lower kitchen cabinets. The story of this, or the reason behind the cabinets, is that this house is what might be considered a starter home. And I think everything was originally builder grade when it was built, and let's just say expenses were saved. Corners may have been cut. And I guess these are the stories that I am making up about how this house came into existence. One of the kitchen cabinets specifically is very, very narrow, and it does not need to be that narrow because there is plenty of space for a wider cabinet in that spot. But what the builders did when they installed that cabinet was they installed this very, very narrow cabinet, and then they just put a panel to hide the gap between the edge of the cabinet and the wall. And to the untrained eye, or someone who's not paying too close attention, it just looks like, oh, okay, well, there's the cabinet. That's how wide it is. That's where it fits. But when you look at it, you really focus on it, you might wonder, why doesn't the opening of the cabinet go all the way to the wall? Why is there such a narrow cabinet drawer and cabinet door in that space that could be so much wider based on the distance to the wall? My husband noticed this, and he was aware that wider cabinets are available for purchase and installation. And so, since we were going to redo the kitchen countertop soon, he decided that he would just lift the current countertop up, pull out the narrow cabinet and replace it with a wider cabinet, and then just paint everything to match. And then we're one step closer to having the kitchen complete, since that step is needed prior to getting the kitchen countertops done. So that all happened, not without incident. We have had a few mishaps, like in the delivery of the cabinets. We lost a drawer. We got the wrong size at first, but everything has all worked out. And earlier this week, my husband and his cousin took out the kitchen countertop, pulled out not only that tiny narrow cabinet, but another one, which I'll tell you about in a minute. And then they replaced them with the new ones and put the countertop back on. And when I look at it now, I see the improvement. It makes so much sense. I realize those new cabinets are the ones that should have always been there the whole time. It doesn't make any sense for the other old ones that were pulled out to have been there in the first place. And it looks so normal and natural, as if they were always meant to be there. Why am I going on and on about kitchen cabinets right now? This isn't a home design podcast. Well, it's because I love metaphors and I use metaphors to explain things. And these cabinets are a perfect metaphor. What if these cabinets are like our thoughts and beliefs? What if we are currently thinking something and believing something that we inherited or that was always there all along that really didn't make sense and wasn't as big or as expansive or really didn't fit well, at least not as well as it could have? Maybe there is something that is an even better fit for us, and we were just unaware that a better or wider or more expansive option is available to us. And we don't even realize that those other thought options exist in the world. I didn't realize it is possible to switch out a narrow cabinet for a wider cabinet. I didn't even know that was an option until my husband suggested it. He knew where to go, he had the tools, and he had the ability to pull it out and replace it with something that was better. He replaced that narrow one with one that provided more space and more of an expansive feeling. And it wasn't just one cabinet that got replaced, it was two. Obviously, the one that sparked this whole project was the unusually and unnecessarily narrow cabinet. And I am making the metaphor that we might have some unusually and unnecessarily narrow thoughts or ideas or beliefs. They might feel very constricting and confining to us, just like that cabinet with its tiny little narrow drawer felt very constricting and confining to me when I was trying to fit things in and trying to make things work. I remember wishing it wasn't this narrow and recognizing I would have to make a special effort to find drawer dividers and organizational accessories that would work in such a confined space. We might also have thoughts like that feel constricting. We might have a belief that feels very confining, and we recognize it. We know, I wish I wasn't so limited here. I wish I didn't have to work so hard to make everything fit into my narrow concept of this. I wish this wasn't holding me back. We might have thoughts like that. The metaphor here in the cabinet example is someone was able to come along, recognize it, know that there was a better option, know that there was a more expansive option, and know how and be willing to pull it all out and replace it with something that was a better fit that did allow for more space and more options. We can do this with our thoughts, maybe with some help from a friend or a coach. We want to be able to recognize our thought is too narrow. Know that there's a better option, know that there's a more expansive option, and know how and be willing to pull out that thought and replace it with something that is a better fit that allows for more space and more options. That's the example of the first cabinet that was too narrow. Here's what happened with the second cabinet. We have a middle cabinet that goes under the sink, and it had some light water damage from an old dishwasher, but from the front of it, it looked fine. So there was no major problems with this cabinet. It was fine, it was functional, it was doing its job, it was just going great, no problem at all. And since my husband was pulling up the countertop and replacing the other cabinet anyhow, he just decided to switch the one under the sink to a new one, but with exactly the same dimensions, no improvements. What we didn't realize when he installed that new sink cabinet was that there were some slight differences that we had not noticed. The old sink cabinet had a divider, kind of like a seam, down the middle of the front. So the two doors would close onto this static middle divider. And it also had two false front drawers under the sink. So these are those two rectangular openings with a false front, so it's like a drawer that doesn't open. It's very standard. If you look around kitchens in the United States, you'll see many kitchens, unless they're custom, probably have this kind of an undersink cabinet. What we didn't pay attention to, but now are so happy and so pleased about when we got the replacement cabinet, is that this new one doesn't have that middle divider, that middle static piece down the middle. Instead of the two false fronts under the sink, it only has one wide false front that covers the entire length of the cabinet. This new cabinet opened up so many more options because it makes it easier for a new undermount sink installation. Whenever we do get our new sink and when we get our new countertops, this new cabinet gives us the option to have a flip down false front. So that's a great place to put small tools or sponges or whatever you want in the front of the sink where there's no drawer. The problem with the two false fronts that was on the original cabinet was that the hardware for two of the flip-down drawers would have not been possible with the sink there. There's just not enough space or room for the hardware and the sink. But when the false front is extended to just one long piece, now it only needs one set of hardware, one on each edge of the cabinet, and now suddenly that makes space so that we can have that false front flip down that we like to have that we didn't think we could have. Because we don't have the middle piece in the middle of the cabinet doors, it gives us more room for putting things under the sink. And if you listen to my Reno Reminders episode, you know that this kitchen is much smaller and much more tight on space and storage. So anytime that we get a little bit more space or more options for putting things away, we appreciate it. The cabinet metaphor just keeps on coming. We had one cabinet that we knew was too confining. It was easily recognizable that this one was holding us back, so to speak. The cabinet was keeping us small and making us feel tight and confined. The cabinet was not taking full advantage of what was available. There was plenty of space for it to spread out, but for whatever reason, the original builders just decided to go with the narrowest one they could find instead of one that fit in that space perfectly. And the second cabinet was fine and functional. We had no idea that there was something even better available until we went out and grabbed what we thought was the same. And when we installed it, it turned out to have so many better benefits and options that we didn't even know we wanted and didn't even know we were missing. So here comes further explanation of this metaphor that I'm loving so much. I think this is the same when it comes to our beliefs. We might recognize that we have some beliefs that are confining, that do hold us back. We have thoughts that don't let us use our full potential. And in other areas of our life, we might be fine and everything is functional, and we might, just out of an opportunity or some chance, decide to upgrade a thought or a belief. And switching a thought that is fine and functional to something slightly different and better might have so many additional benefits and bonuses that we didn't even consider. So hopefully you are loving this metaphor as much as I am. And I'm wondering if you can already see some applications or examples of this metaphor in your own life, like I saw some in mine. Here's one that's easy to recognize because it is confining. I was thinking a thought that wasn't allowing me to use my full potential. Probably about a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, I met a woman, let's just call her a friend of a friend. And my initial reaction upon meeting her was, I don't like her. Okay, I wasn't trying to be mean. This was not mean. I don't hate her. I just kind of noticed my own reaction to her when I met her. And as we probably all do, I just kind of thought, oh, well, she's not really my style. We're just really not on the same vibe. She's probably not someone who I would choose to spend time with. I don't like her. That thought I was thinking just seemed like a fact. There are some people in this world that we don't like. It just seemed involuntary and factual and irreplaceable. You know what I mean, right? If you just don't like someone, you just don't like them. It's not a problem. You just don't spend time with them. You don't have to make it mean anything. You just don't like the person. That's how it is. So that's kind of what I was thinking about this person who was distant and unrelated and not a big player in my cast of characters in my life. Well, now that things have started to open up and people are being a little bit more social and there are more events happening, now I have encountered this person a little bit more than I had in the past year. And I noticed my own thought, my own assumption of the truth that I don't like her. And I noticed that it felt a little confining. And luckily, maybe because of my practice of managing my mind and noticing my thoughts, I noticed, oh, I am thinking I don't like her. Instead of just assuming that was a foregone conclusion, I noticed I was thinking it and that was a thought. And I noticed that thought felt pretty confining. I noticed that I didn't have to not like her. I noticed that I don't want to be a person who doesn't like people. I want to love unconditionally. I want to be non-judgmental. So when I noticed myself thinking, I don't like her, I thought to myself, but I could like her. Not liking her is actually a choice. So that was interesting. That was me recognizing, oh, there is a larger cabinet available. Another cabinet could fit into this space. Keeping this cabinet, keeping this thought, is a confining choice. I decided to think about the possibility of liking her. I let myself wonder how I could start liking her. I'm just in the wondering phase right now. I haven't really taken too much action on this yet, certainly not any massive action at all. I haven't really come up with a strategy of how I'm going to fall in love with this person or tolerate her or start to like her. I really just have been poking around the edges of the thought, I don't like her, and noticing that thought does not have to be true. I could actually like her if I decided I wanted to like her. And I have decided I want to like her. And it's been really interesting to notice my own reaction when I see her and also notice myself thinking about her at other times, even when we're not in the same company. And I have to say, I'm starting to like her. Isn't that interesting? So there is an example of a cabinet/thought that I have replaced or am in the process of replacing with something a little bit larger, a little bit more expansive, certainly much more comfortable than the confining cabinet/thought that I had been thinking. Another example of an easy to recognize confining belief that I have now replaced with a larger, more comfortable, more perfect fit belief is going back to this house and this move. My belief before was I wasn't going to like living here and I wasn't going to like this house. And that thought, I won't like it, that belief that I really believed and told myself over and over again and created so much resistance for me, I'm not going to like living in that house. I'm not going to like that house. It was certainly confining, certainly uncomfortable, certainly small-minded, so narrow-minded. And it has been so opening and expanding for me to think, maybe I was wrong about not liking this house. Maybe I will love living in this house. It is possible that I will love this neighborhood. This house might be great for me. How interesting that I have stumbled upon this metaphor. So now I'm wondering, what if I walked around this house to see what other inherited builder grade decisions were made in the past that I am currently living with that I don't need to? What other things am I living with that could be expanded or could be replaced and would be so much better and so much more comfortable? So that makes me wonder, can I tour through my mind and notice what other inherited thoughts and beliefs I'm living with that could be replaced with something more expansive, more comfortable, more my style, more of my choosing? When I started to consider that, I will tell you, I got a little bit of resistance from myself. I found some avoidant resistance. I noticed the sentence, oh, no, think about that later. Don't try to focus on that right now. Just think of that later. My mind did not want to go there. That makes perfect sense. I am suggesting to my mind, why don't you go in and tear out some countertops and pull out some cabinets and spend time and money and make a mess and go in and change things that are working okay right now. Of course my mind is going to say, oh, don't do that. Don't spend any energy or effort to rearrange anything. Just keep it all as it is. It's all fine. Don't worry about it. So now I know I want to be on the lookout for what other thoughts and beliefs I currently have that could be bigger, better, more expansive, more comfortable, and use more of my own potential. So carrying on with this metaphor, what about you? How would you find these things? What if you are having some avoidant resistance like I was or still am? What if your mind is telling you, no, don't, nothing to change here. There's no improvements that need to be made, no replacements of any thoughts. All the thoughts and beliefs up here are just totally fine and normal. Nothing's too confining, nothing's too constricting. Well, you might already know that you do have some confining and constricting thoughts because you can see the results of those thoughts in your life. Maybe some of your relationships aren't exactly as you would want them to be. It's possible that your career or your business or how you spend your time isn't exactly as you want it to be. Is your self-esteem or your self-concept or your own confidence level in general or in one specific area living up to its potential? You might have already identified that narrow cabinet/thought that I've been describing that is just holding you back right now. It's just not as big or as wide as it could be. It's just not using its full capacity. You might already know that, and it could be something that if you decided to, you could work on replacing. But how would you find the ones that are fine and functional and doing their job and going along great, but could actually be so much better and so much more comfortable and allow for so many more possibilities and options? What if we all don't even realize that upgrading a thought or belief is an option right now? How could we find those thoughts? I have 2 suggestions, and you can probably guess what they are. One of them is coaching, and the other suggestion is, say it with me, journaling. These are both tools that I use myself and love, and I stand by and I recommend, and I know they can help you too. Just like in the cabinet metaphor, where my husband is someone who has the tools and the experience and the awareness of the other options available in our kitchen, working with a coach is like working with someone who has the tools and the experience and the awareness of other thoughts that you might think and you're not even aware exist, or that you wouldn't even think to replace. A coach is someone who could come in and notice and point out, hey, you could actually have something more expansive there. You could actually have something more comfortable there. You could actually use all that potential instead of just part of it. That's why I am recommending coaching if you are curious about what thoughts can be expanded or replaced. And journaling is like coaching. I consider journaling my self-coaching time. It is a way for you just to spill out all those thoughts on paper. Just get them all out and then notice them. Take a look at them. Think about them. See if there are any patterns. Play around with those thoughts. Consider which thoughts don't have to be true for you. Consider which thoughts could be replaced by something more comfortable, more allowing, more expansive. What do you think? Is it possible to upgrade our thoughts the same way we would upgrade cabinets in a kitchen? Which one do you think is the messier job or the more uncomfortable job? Can you imagine yourself working with a coach or journaling in order to recognize your current thoughts that just aren't doing it for you right now, or that are fine but could be upgraded and could be even better? I'm excited to hear a few things from you based on today's episode. How did you like this metaphor? Did I lose you with all the cabinet talk? Or did you get where I was going with all of this? Do you have any resistance to rearranging and renovating the thoughts in your mind? What questions do you have about how you could go about doing this? Let me know what you think by leaving a comment at the show notes at bexb.org/expand, EXPAND, or send me an email at hi@bexb.org. And if you want to try out coaching with me, go to my website at bexb.org and look for the link that says Work With Me so you can see a few options. And if you want to try out journaling, grab a notebook, a piece of paper, or even the back of a napkin and start writing down what you are thinking. And of course, if you want to get yourself a new journal or notebook, you can check out my journal and notebook shop at bexb.org/shop journals. Thank you so much for listening today. Have fun looking for thoughts to replace and remodel. I will talk with you next week. This has been Release Your Resistance. Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, make sure you're subscribed and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Also, think about someone who you know who would love this episode and share it with them. There should be a share button on your app if you're listening to this on your phone. If you'd like to continue this conversation one-on-one or in real time, come visit me on my site at beckspeed.org to see how we can work together.